and normal folk aren't in those. This is why Fox is so successful. No, I think normal folk are gonna hear. Normal folk are already hearing that this guy was CIA. I think it will shock you. I suspect Blue Anon will say this is a false flag. You will see more and more liberals say this was a false flag, specifically designed by the Trump administration. All right. So, with that information in mind, and the reason why I showed you this, like I said, is because the dude was quite the guy who shot the National Guard in D.C. was a part of these odds. I believe the bandana he's wearing is an ancient Afghan symbol of peace. Yeah, this is why I said this was American as hell, despite being an Afghan national. Okay? CIA confirms that the D.C. National Guard worked for a secret U.S.-backed squad called 0 Unit 3 in Kandahar, conducting nocturnal operations, night raids. His childhood friend in Khost confirms he was addicted to drugs and disturbed by the pointless he inflicted. Just an endless amount of cruelty and senseless violence all around the world. And what is the lesson that we're taking from this, by the way? The Trump administration will re-examine green cards issued to people from 19 countries of concern. Another instance of blowback happens, and what does the administration do? They go, oh, he was one of ours, but honestly, we can use this as a way to solidify our white nativist anti-immigrant sentiment. Awesome. That's great. Surely that won't cause more anger and resentment, for the record. You know, that certainly won't actually piss off people even further, by the way. Anyway, here, if you want to know more about this, after Vietnam, there were a shit ton of murder done in the U.S., California and Louisiana, mostly by ex-South Vietnamese Phoenix program guys settling scores. And that recently CIA did a remarkably good job resettling their Afghan CPTP militia bros here. There was another instance, I think, of another, like, I forget who it was. There was another guy who did this recently in Fairfax, okay? There was quite literally another guy that did this recently. He shot cops, though. Yeah. Today's the day. Video shows suspect shot 2 VA officers during traffic stop before fatal OIS. Moments before the suspect shouted he should have served with the Taliban, expressing anger at the U.S. before opening fire on Fairfax County officers. This was back in May 27th of 2025. This happened earlier this year, okay? Fairfax, Virginia, newly released body camera video from the Fairfax County Police Department captures the intense moments leading up to a deadly traffic stop that left 2 officers wounded and the suspect fatally shot. Shooting happened on April 23rd near the Greenbrier Town Center in Fairfax, Virginia. Officers that pulled over the suspect identified as 36-year-old Jamal Wali for a traffic violation. According to the police, Wali immediately told the responding officer that he was armed. I have a gun and I'm armed, Wali said, as the officer approached the driver's side of the vehicle, according to the body camera released by the department. The officer remained calm, asking for Wali's license. Wali, visibly agitated, and refused to hand over his license. I don't have a license. Go back and sit in the car and leave, Wali says. According to Chief Kevin Davis, Wali, who came to the U.S. in 2014 after serving as a translator for U.S. forces in Afghanistan, expressed frustration about his treatment in the United States and said he was unable to find work or receive disability benefits. At one point, Wali shouted, I should have served in the Taliban. They're better than you. Wali also said he had 4 children and claimed he previously served in the special forces. His video shows. His statements quickly escalated into a rant, during which he turned on a GoPro camera and said, today's the day, buddy. As backup officers arrived, one positioned himself at the passenger side of the vehicle while another moved to the driver's side. When the driver's side officer attempted to detain Wali, he pulled away, drew a handgun, and fired several rounds. A single bullet struck both officers who were positioned on the driver's side of the car in the arm. This just happened earlier this year. Some more examples of the white homegrown version of this, for the record, is the guy who drove his F-150 into a Mormon church. That didn't get a lot of play, obviously, because we found out he was the most homegrown, the whitest guy of all time. Okay? Not only do we have our homegrown version of this, okay, or the I feel like Batman or Halo guy that blew up his Tesla Cybertruck outside the Trump Tower in Vegas. Okay? There are a lot of these guys out there, okay? There are a lot of these guys out there. It's just, we did this. I feel like Batman or Halo. Thank you for the 5 gifted subs. Let's not play the game. This is a vet. He was a comprador. What do you mean? No, that's my point. Vet or comprador, it doesn't matter. We mistreat everybody all the same. They are just servants of capital. That's the whole point. Okay, they're servants of capital, and we export our brain rot. It's not enough that we ship our young to do untold amounts of violence overseas so that someone can turn profit in a corporate boardroom. But then also on top of that, we export the brain rot to the local population, and we make them also serve in the same exact violent ways. We brick their brains. We bring some of them back here, and then on top of that, they get doubly fucked up, and they lose their goddamn minds. It's a powder keg. Yeah, Michigan church was ex-Marine. I know. What do you think will happen? What do you think is always going to happen? This is the most likely outcome, is what I mean. Yes, comprador for a native agent of a foreign business in a colonial or semi-colonial economy. Mohammed Afzal Hussein, 27, a planning director for the city of Espanola, who came to the United States from Pakistan, was shot dead on Monday outside his Albuquerque apartment complex, while Aftab Hussein, 41, was found dead of a gunshot wound on July 26 near the Albuquerque's International District. Those are likely linked to the of a 62-year-old Mohammed Ahmadi in a parking lot by a halal supermarket and cafe on November 7th last year, police said. Two of those men were members of the same mosque who were shot dead in Albuquerque in late July and early August. Police said there was a strong possibility to connected to the November of an Afghan immigrant. This is basically, this was all the way back in 2022. Fourth Muslim man murdered in New Mexico and targeted. It's just like the revenge that took place, just like they took place in the aftermath of the exact same initiatives that took place in Vietnam. This ties it back to the ProPublica article about Little Saigon. An old war comes to a new country. The journalists were assassinated on American soil one after another. Duong Tram Lam was the first. He was 27 years old and ran a Vietnamese language publication called Khai Dinh Lang, which he mailed to immigrants around the country. A gunman found him as he walked out of a San Francisco apartment building one morning and shot him, a single bullet piercing his pulmonary artery just above the heart. For magazine publisher Pham Van Top, the end came more slowly. He was sleeping in a small office in Garden Grove, California, when an arsonist set fire to the building. He was heard screaming before he succumbed to smoke inhalation. In Houston, a killer chased Nguyen Dam Phong from his home in his pajamas and shot him 7 times with a .45 caliber handgun. The murder marked the end of Dam Phong's twice-monthly broadsheet newspaper, which he had named Tu Do Freedom. Altogether, 5 Vietnamese-American journalists were killed between 1981 and 1990. All worked for small publications serving the refugee population that sought shelter in the U.S. after the fall of Saigon in 1975. At least 2 other people were murdered as well. FBI agents came to believe that the journalists, along with the array of fire bombings and beatings, were attacks ordered by an organization called the National United Front for the Liberation of Vietnam, a prominent group led by former military commanders from South Vietnam. Agents theorized that the front was intimidating or executing those who defied it, FBI documents show, and even sometimes those simply sympathetic to the victorious communists in Vietnam. But the FBI never made a single arrest for the crimes, and the case was formally closed 2 decades ago. I wonder why. Violent attacks on journalists often function as a brutal form of censorship, all this other stuff. But that's it. Last year, when fighters from the Islamic State group war correspondent James Foley, President Obama praised him as a man who courageously told the stories of his fellow human beings and promised to hunt his killers. Our reach is long, Obama said. We are patient. Justice will be done. Yeah. I think we know what happened to some of the figureheads of that movement. Justice was served, if you think about it. Actually, it wasn't. I don't know what. It's just remember. Wonder what happened to the Islamic State leadership. Wonder what happened. Maybe there's a room for growth. And also, just going to say this right now. A lot of people are going to get mad at me for saying this. Ukraine, get mad at me all you want, but just remember. Oh my God, how could this have happened? Just wait. What level of resentment will exist for the nationalist militias and the nationalist forces that were galvanized and emboldened and seen as emancipatory figureheads once Russia invaded Ukraine? The same people that got training and then were cast aside, some of which were, shipped here. Maybe. Just saying. All of these violent desires inevitably will have violent ends. Okay. I'm sure emphasizing that we have an ocean to protect won't come back to impact us. I mean, there is a fucking ocean between us and all these other places too. Like, what will happen? What will happen in the aftermath of that? I'm just saying. You're about to see white mujahideen Ukraine war was not started by the U.S. and the biggest atrocities documented so far are from the Russian side. You're right. We have no involvement in Ukraine whatsoever, and I'm totally fucking oblivious for saying that arming and training, even before the Russian invasion of Ukraine, arming and training the Azov Battalion, which became righteous liberators, we became seen as righteous liberators, will never get mad and angry and resentful against the West for abandoning them and then basically giving, leaving scraps of what remains of Ukraine to the Ukrainian population after endless amounts of fucking war. This isn't defense of Russia, dumbass. My point is, I mean, you can make the same fucking argument about Afghanistan 1, not even Afghanistan 2. Do people not have object permanence? No. You have to suspend object permanence if you want to find yourself in defense of American foreign policy. Yeah, did the U.S. face blowback from its support of Afghanistan in its fight against Russia in the 80s? No. Famously, the U.S. never received any blowback from its support of Afghanistan in its fight against Russia in the 80s. Clearly, that did not lead to any sort of domestic blowback. That's just, those towers just kind of did it on their own, you know? They just kind of did it on their own. This is certainly the first time a CIA asset in Afghanistan has attempted to murder American citizens on U.S. soil. That's never happened before, and it certainly will never happen again. This guy is a unique incident, one time, and one time only. I thought he was Saudi. Well, I'm saying CIA asset who operated in Afghanistan for that reason. I didn't say Osama bin Laden was an Afghan national. He was not. He was Saudi. Are you talking about 9/11? Yes, dude. What the fuck do you think we're talking about? Yes, we're talking about 9/11. You know, anti-communist CIA asset on a path, paving a path to peace in Africa. Okay, that's what he's doing until not so peaceful. Anti-Soviet warrior puts his army on the road to peace. Yeah. What more can I say? Hi, Twin Tower expert here. Towers only explode and crumble when they're in extreme fear. You're being highly insensitive. Yeah. Maybe more and more people will understand what I meant when I was talking about America deserving things. I don't know. America bringing about this kind of blowback on its own. Who knows? Anyway, let's get back to this.
To President Trump's executive order to make D.C. safe and beautiful. They answered the call. They took the charge. They volunteered. They put their lives on the line for people they don't even know. And that, unfortunately, is becoming a reality.
Yeah, by that they mean the president and his own personal ambitions. Like, that's what they're when they say put their lives on the line for people that they don't even know, they just mean like the American government, servants at Capitol, and the American president that is advancing a domestic fascist agenda. They never knew him. They never will know him. Well, they might get a visit from him now, but, you know, for a photo op. But they certainly didn't know him before.
More and more for the members of law enforcement. Yesterday on Thanksgiving Eve at approximately 2:15, near 17th and I Streets in the northwest section of the district, near the Farragut West Metro Station, two uniformed guardsmen were ambushed in a brazen and targeted attack. A lone gunman opened fire without provocation, ambush style, armed with a .357 Smith & Wesson revolver. One guardsman is struck, goes down, and then the shooter leans over and strikes the guardsman again. Another guardsman is struck several times. Fellow guardsmen who were there responded immediately, engaging the suspect, neutralizing the threat, and subduing him
She's
at the
fucking
scene.
Lit, always. She always looks like she drunk drove here and ran over a bunch of kindergartners, wrapped the fucking F-150 around the telephone pole, and then stumbled out of the car to deliver the press conference. Every single time she's on camera, 100%.
He was transported to a local hospital where he remains, as we speak, under heavy guard. Thanks to the swift and coordinated response of the National Guard and the Metropolitan Police Department, no additional victims were harmed, and the scene was secured within minutes. The suspect, he has been identified as Ramanullah Lakanwal, a 29-year-old Afghan who entered the United States under Biden's Operation Allies Welcome, a program following the disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan. He resided in Bellingham, Washington, with his wife and, we believe, 5 children. And we're working very closely with our federal partners, especially DHS and the FBI, to review his immigration history and the vetting process itself. What we know about him is that he drove his vehicle across country from the state of Washington with the intended target of coming to our nation's capital. As we stand here today, the charges that are appropriate right now are 3 counts of assault.
Yeah, by the way, the Trump admin did grant him asylum earlier this year, for the record. CNN National Guard shooting suspect applied for asylum in 2024, and it was granted earlier this year. So when they fucking talk about, like, when they talk about he was an illegal immigrant, it's like, I mean, I guess technically any immigrant could be considered illegal because it's just paperwork, just like every illegal immigrant could be considered legal because it's just fucking paperwork. Yeah, per Afghan Evac, a nonprofit that works with Afghan SIVs, regarding Ramanullah Lakanwal, alleged shooter of the 2 National Guard in D.C., previously served in NDS, the 0 Unit 03, one of Afghan's elite counterterrorism units operated by the CIA with direct U.S. intelligence and military support. He was, like, vetted out the ass, okay? Entry to the United States, the individual was evacuated by the U.S. military in August 2021 following the fall of Kabul. He arrived under humanitarian parole. The temporary authority used to evacuate tens of thousands of American citizens, lawful permanent residents, SIV applicants, and at-risk Afghan partners, the compradors and the like. He was later granted asylum in April 2025. Wow. Immigration pathway. He had an active SIV application underway and had received chief of mission approval, but had not yet been granted lawful permanent residence. Instead, he applied for asylum during the Biden administration, but his asylum was approved under the Trump administration. Both his chief of mission application and his asylum application required review and vetting by the U.S. government, including the CIA. Asylum is a permanent status granted by the USCIS after reviewing identity and background checks. There is biometric vetting, in-person interviews, and assessment of individualized risk and eligibility under U.S. law. Asylees can apply for lawful permanent residence 1 year after being granted asylum. But yeah, it's Mark Kelly's fault, I think, because he said that members of the military should not follow unlawful orders being given to them by their immediate supervisors, their superior officers. That's probably. Hasan, your conclusions about American foreign policy being principally guided by capitalist interests, I think, is a naive one. I am familiar with national security discourse, having worked in it at some point. It's a self-sustaining ecosystem of think tanks, academics, and practitioners, which has become increasingly radical and isolated from public attitudes to foreign policy. Wait, what? You literally just described more aspects of capitalism, more aspects of capital. It's a self-sustaining, self-justifying ecosystem that is created in an effort to basically keep designing foreign policy in this way. It's not even read Marx. At that point, it's read Lenin. So yes, you just said, hey, I don't think it's actually capitalism. It's just more capitalism. Yeah, I know. When you worked in the NatSec bubble or the NatSec blob, didn't you look at who was sustaining these think tanks, for example? Did you not question as to why the names on the side of the fucking building was very familiar? Or did you think those were just like magnanimous doters who were just engaging in the philanthropic act? That's what it is. Bro, take off your suit. You're sitting home alone. You are not in the office. I'm clocking in, baby. Can a white boy have a little bit of swag on Janksgiving? This is my home office. Wow.
With intent to kill while armed, a violation of DC Code 22-401 and DC Code 22-4502. He will also be charged with possession of a...
He was in violation of numerous laws, like shooting National Guardsmen in broad daylight, which is a violation of the law. Halt! You have broken the law, sir.
Firearm during a crime of violence. He faces 15 years under the assault with the intent to kill. We intend to continue monitoring what the charges will be, depending upon the well-being of the guardsmen. We are praying that they survive and that the highest charge will not have to be murder in the first degree. But make no mistake, if they do not, that will certainly be the charge, murder in the first degree. The Department of Justice, under Attorney General Pam Bondi, is committed to a thorough and an impartial...
Holy shit, for a fucking TV personality, she's awful at speaking. Okay, it's very difficult for her to read when everything looks blurry because she is zooted, okay? Excuse me. She is drunk off her goddamn mind, sir. Do you know how tough that is? Okay. Do you know how difficult that is to competently read while you're hammered?
Investigation where we will hold this perpetrator accountable under the full weight of the law.
And barred out,
now, Sarah
too.
and Andrew volunteered. They came here to protect the people of the district, pursuant to a crime emergency that President Trump rightly declared in this city and in other cities across the country. Our nation's capital should not and must not be comes to commit violence, whatever their cause or motive may be. We should not have to live in fear in the nation's capital, especially by one who came here from a foreign country. And through a process that was so absurd that he came through and released into this country, as many were, knowing virtually nothing about his vetting. This is what happens in this country when people are allowed in who are not properly vetted. These guardsmen and all who are here to protect the district are the line that separates a civilized society from a barbaric one. They are the ones who stand for law and order. This was not just an attack. It was a direct challenge to law and order in our nation's capital. And the individual will be made fully accountable. And though it seems that we have been here before under President Trump, make no mistake, and the Attorney General, we will not allow this to be normalized. It will be confronted, condemned, and prosecuted to the full extent of the law. Now, my message to the individual who committed these acts is you picked the wrong target, the wrong city, and the wrong country, and you will be sorry for the violence and the evil that you perpetrated in our nation's capital. And now I call upon the director of the FBI, Kash Patel.
Thanks, Judge. I'll begin my remarks and my remarks the same way.
I mean, he literally is the outcome of American civilized society. There is no perfect demonstration of this outcome being directed by American civilized society, defended by liberals and conservatives alike in perpetuity. This is the violence that we dish out coming back to the home front in the hands of people who we have trained since they were 15 in this case. Like there is no better demonstration of all of the things that I complain about with regular frequency than this instance right here. This is why I always say this is American brain rot. This is blowback, everything.
Prayer for our fallen soldiers, prayer for our law enforcement community, prayer.
And we're back to Kash Patel looking like he did it, even though we know who the shooting suspect is.
For our National Guardsmen and women, prayer for our brave prosecutors at the Department of Justice and the offices of the D.C. United States Attorney. We must...
She said she wasn't vetted. He was vetted. She's wrong. He was vetted out the wazoo. Okay. He was maximum vetted, by the way. Like more vetted than the average asylum seeker. Say it's a joke before chatter believes you. I'm not. I'm going to keep everybody guessing.
Come together as a nation, especially on this Thanksgiving Day, and remember the sacrifices that so many are making around the world and around this country to secure our freedoms under President Trump's brilliant leadership and administration. I'll provide an update on the case as follows. It is an ongoing investigation of terrorism. Make no mistake about it. The FBI is leading out on these federal assault on a federal law enforcement officer investigation on many fronts. We immediately, with our law enforcement partners in the Metropolitan Police Department and the interagency, secured the scene, seized the weapon, sent in our evidence response team immediately to collect evidence, and started doing block by block canvasses. We are looking for and interviewing witnesses. The firearm and other materials have been sent to our Quantico laboratory already yesterday for immediate analysis. That work is on.
He got like quadruple vetted, bro. He got vetted by the CIA. He got vetted by the American military. He got vetted by the immigration services. He got vetted by everybody. A senior U.S. official confirms that the suspect was vetted by the CIA and then by the NCTC to see if they had any known ties to terrorist groups, coming up clean each time. He came up clean on all checks. Yeah, because the ties that he had to the terrorist group was the fucking CIA. Yeah, obviously. What do you mean? He was one of, quote, unquote, our guys. Worth noting that the vetting done by U.S. intelligence of people overseas is different than what domestic agencies are expected to do once individuals arrive and are seeking asylum. I'm going to repeat this again, but not the first time this has happened, okay? Not the first time this has happened.
Ongoing. Partnering with the D.C. United States Attorney's Office, we have also executed multiple search warrants around the country to include the subject's last known residence, which is in the state of Washington. The search warrant was executed on that house last night or early this morning, and it is an ongoing process. All the individuals found in the house have been interviewed, and some interviews remain ongoing. We will not stop until we interview anyone and everyone associated with the subject, the house, and every piece of his life. There's also subject interviews, relations conducted in San Diego, pursuant to our ongoing investigation. So, as the judge noted, this is a coast-to-coast investigation being led right here in Washington, D.C., and this subject definitely did pick the wrong country. And
not vetted by this admin? What do you mean? Why are these guys saying this subject didn't pick the wrong, this subject picked the wrong country? What do you mean? First of all, the wrong country picked the subject. Okay? And it seems to me like he came here, and I don't think his ambitions initially were to fucking kill National Guardsmen in DC. I don't think that's why he came here. I don't know what this what this conversation is supposed to imply here. He's like, he is our guy.
We will rise together as a nation to show the world what we do here. And we are thankful that we have the Attorney General's brave leadership and President Trump's brave leadership and priorities to safeguard our communities. I also spoke to Director of the CIA, John Ratcliffe, last night, and Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth. There is confirmation now that the subject had a relationship in Afghanistan with partner forces. We are fully investigating.
99% won't know that. I think you're wrong. I think with the ways in which people get informed nowadays, most people are going to know that this guy was an intelligence asset, especially because a lot of conspiracy theorists are going to jump on this for understandable reasons. But yeah, this is 100% something that, I mean, Candace Owens is going to do so much content off of this for sure. Who knows which insane direction she will move the subject matter to, moving millions in that same direction.
That aspect of his background as well, to include any known associates that are either overseas or here in the United States of America. That is what a broad-based international terrorism investigation looks like. We will provide continuous details to the American public while at the same time not jeopardizing the ongoing prosecution to ultimately hold this perpetrator accountable in our courts of law. We will provide as much transparency as possible, but as you can see, the breadth and scope of this investigation will...
It's going to hit the echo chamber, and normal folk aren't in those. This is why Fox is so successful. No, I think normal folk are going to hear normal folk are already hearing that this guy was CIA, I think it will shock you. I suspect Blue Anon will say this is a false flag. You will see more and more liberals say this was a false flag, specifically designed by the Trump administration. I think that the right, the conspiratorial right, will say they might even tie this back to Israel somehow. I guess if I were to try and tie this back to Israel, I would say America went and did the global war on terror because of Israel, and that this is violence coming home. The CIA is doing it for Israel, and then I don't know, somehow they'll figure out a way to say that it was Benjamin Netanyahu's doing or something. Maybe some people will say this is being used as a distraction away from the Epstein story. There will be those. Yeah, lucky for us, everyone has the perfect opportunity to poll their families on this today. So that's your homework, chat. Go ask your parents and your grandparents what they think about this.
Will continue. We will continue to hit the streets and hit every town and every house and talk to every witness. The men and women of the FBI and the Metropolitan Police Department and the interagency, to include the Department of Homeland Security, DEA, and ATF, are working tirelessly on this Thanksgiving Day. And I know just by talking to the leaders behind me that instead of going on and being...
Do you not think he's CIA? What do you mean he is CIA? There is no thinking involved here. It's just an objective fact that he was a CIA asset. There is no, he just literally is a CIA asset. That's not in question here. The question is, how will people, because that's just the story, the facts of the matter. But oftentimes I think a lot of people with conspiratorial ambitions will not just look at a regular conspiracy being confirmed. They'll just move away from that to try to find something even crazier. I'll give you an example. Jeffrey Epstein is basically the most real example of what QAnon people believe, right? That there is a deep state pedophilic cabal that is primarily Jewish, and that they're doing this for Israel, right? Jeffrey Epstein is literally a CIA Mossad collaborative effort, okay? Who was engaging in the sex trafficking of minors and was deeply tied to potentially a blackmail operation that absolutely worked with the state of Israel, right? 100%. And yet conspiracy theorists don't just look at that and go, you see, this is a real world example. I think we should focus on this. They move beyond it. Okay? They move beyond it, and then they come up with even grander conspiracies for some fucking reason. It's not enough. It's not enough that a conspiracy theory turns into reality for them, that they just point to that as the clear-cut real-world example of some of the things that they believed. They have to turn around and engage in the Illuminati and blood sacrifice rituals and things of that nature, right? Same goes for this. You got a fucking a CIA asset, a child soldier at the age of 15 that was plucked and groomed to do death squad shit in Afghanistan, who comes to the United States of America and is angry as fuck and ends up shooting and trying to kill 2 National Guardsmen in DC, okay? Used, abused, did untold amounts of, countless amounts of senseless murder, most likely. At the age of 29, he has a PTSD-style snapping moment in the same way that you've seen many other veterans engage in these sorts of domestic terror incidents, okay? And this is an open and shut case, and yet people, I think, will turn around and find new ways to make this conspiracy more grand.
With their families, everyone rogered up and showed up to work today, and none of them want to go home. That's the resolve that we have together as a team to bring to you justice for this heinous act of terrorism here in our nation's capital. And as the judge said, we will ensure that our law enforcement partners are out there in full force to make sure the world can enjoy our nation's capital. We will not let this heinous act of violence prevent people from visiting our beautiful nation's capital. And we will also continue to highlight any evidence that we can publicly. And as the judge said, this individual is in this country for one reason and one reason alone, because of the disastrous withdrawal from the Biden administration and the failure to vet in any way, shape, or form, This individual and countless others, and this administration has taken the rightful step to stop any further allowance of people with this similar background into the country, and we're thankful for that. And as I said, this investigation remains ongoing, and I think I'll turn it over to General Blanchard.
Like, how can you turn around and be like, oh, this is because he's a fucking immigrant? Like, I just don't know how you can actually turn around and try to argue this, try to continue with this argument when he is a CIA guy. Do you see what I mean? Sure, there are some people who are so racist that they're like, well, this is different because he was a CIA guy, but he was an Afghan national. But I don't think this is going to be enough for people. I don't think people are going to be like, well, you know, Afghan national vets are a little different than our homegrown version of like veteran snapping. It's different, actually. You see, he's brown. Like I think this makes it harder to come up with a unified message on this, especially once everyone recognizes that this is a CIA involved situation.
The National Guard now. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. All across America this morning, families are waking up. They'll spend the day with their children, their brothers, sisters, husbands, wives, friends from across the community. There will be the smell of turkey.
What?
All the fixings. They'll watch parades, football games. They'll pray together. They'll talk about what they're grateful for.
And remember, for that liberty, for you to be able to enjoy that liberty, did we actually go and invade Afghanistan? And for that very same liberties to be enjoyed, we actually ended up targeting 15-year-olds and 14-year-olds in Afghanistan to turn them into ruthless, bloodthirsty monsters who engaged in night raids where they killed a shit ton of civilians. Okay? For those liberties to be protected, did we actually send the National Guard to D.C., even though numerous lower court judges said that this was actually illegal? It's all of those liberties that we're doing this. We're doing this for you so you can enjoy Thanksgiving, okay?
This morning, there are two families that will not have that opportunity. Andy and Sarah's families, they're spending the day reflecting on the past. And in the days coming, they'll reflect on and think about what could have been, what might be. Because regardless of the outcome, we know that their lives, their families' lives are all changed forever. Because one person decided to do this horrific and evil thing. And all across America, we are also reminded that there are many law enforcement agents, first responders, soldiers, service members all around the world who at best will come home, eat some cold turkey, open up Tupperware, eat what's left over because they spent the day defending the American ideals, getting out there and getting after it on every American citizen's behalf. I will say that the District of Columbia National Guard, this task force, is more committed this morning to the president's directive to make D.C. safe and beautiful. Our resolve will be tested. It is being tested, but make no mistake, each and every one of these soldiers and airmen will meet and exceed the expectation that we have for them. They are, in fact, America's best. I'm proud of each and every one of them. I pray for each and every one of them today, and in particular, for these two young service members who are willing to go above and beyond and pay whatever price our nation asks of them. I ask every American today to keep them in their thoughts and prayers as you go about your day. Thank you.
Thank you, General.
Okay, the voice there of Brigadier General Leland Blanchard of the National Guard speaking at a press conference this morning about the shooting of 2 National Guards members who are currently still in critical condition in local hospitals. We heard also from the U.S. Attorney, Jeanine Pirro. She was able.
Dude, I swear to God, every time I see another instance of unlimited super violence on U.S. soil, okay, and then I hear from the official organs of government and how they explain why it happened and what they are doing to fix the problem in general, and they have no ambition whatsoever in actually solving these issues and simply use it for their own agendas. Ironically enough, furthering more instances of violence and making it more likely for these sorts of instances of violence to happen. It I think erodes my soul a little bit. Like piece by piece, it chips away. It's just so crazy. It's like America constantly loves rushing into a burning building with a gasoline tank and matches. It's crazy. Yeah, this is gonna only be fixed by taking a more reactionary approach to immigration and also continuing to justify our endless militarism. And also doing more of that militarism at the domestic front as well.
To tell us that the suspect, who is Ramanallah Lakhanwal, 29 years old, Afghan, entered the U.S. back in 2021 under what was then known as Operation Allies Welcome. Pirro said that he used a Smith & Wesson .357 revolver. Those are the allegations as it stands right now. We also heard from FBI Director Kash Patel. He was able to tell us that he was going to be, that the lab right now is looking at the gun in that case. And we're going to turn now to some of the questions that Patel is receiving about the investigation.
Where interviews were conducted and are going to be continued to be conducted, and we will go anywhere in the country or the world where the evidence leads us.
Are there accomplices, relationships in San Diego you can talk about?
All of that is an ongoing investigation.
Can anyone give an update as far as Sarah and Andrew, who were injured? You say critical condition. Can you give anything beyond that? Are they expected to make it? Is it touch and go? Can you tell us a little more about how they're doing?
And the full spelling of their names, please.
It is Sarah Beckstrom, Beckstrom, and Andrew Wolfe with an E, Wolfe. Okay, and Sarah Beckstrom. S with an H. Okay. Now, with respect to their medical condition, as I said, they are receiving the finest medical care. Their families are with them now. They are critical. I think you understand the meaning of that. It's not clear, how this is going to end up. But let me be perfectly clear about how it will end up in this office. If one of them is to pass, and God forbid that happens, this is a murder one, period, end of the story. We are praying on a day like today when families come together in America and they hold hands around the Thanksgiving table. I beg you, I beseech you to pray for these 2 young people that they survive.
Oh my God.
Okay, I think that's it.
Insane how we're just in a Fox News sponsored burger government nowadays. I hate it. I mean, just remember.
But Stephen, I want to ask.
Even before the Fox News sponsored burger government, I need you to understand Barack Obama, Joe Biden, and Donald Trump also contributed to the actions that took place yesterday. Okay? Those weren't, with the exception of Trump 1, those weren't burger sponsored or Fox News sponsored burger governments. This is why I'm saying that there is a uniparty approach to a lot of this stuff. Okay? There is a uniparty approach to a lot of this shit. I mean, obviously George W. Bush as well. It goes beyond George W. Bush.
Ask you a question. Do you think, given the reduction in robberies and murders and crime in the district, how much safer and more beautiful it is now? Because
Republicans look at this and go, oh, the real problem here is that we brought any of these collaborators back to the U.S. soil. We should have just kept all the Afghan nationals in Afghanistan and let the Taliban kill them, right? But the real problem is, why the fuck were we in Afghanistan to begin with? Why did we even bring Afghan nationals who are compradors into the equation to do extrajudicial assassinations in schools and hospitals? Okay, that's the real fucking problem.
Because of the guardsmen and what happened tonight. Do you think some of these mayors and governors?
Yeah, meanwhile, this asshole, Nazi piece of shit, is going to now use this as an opportunity to weirdly fucking bring the conversation back to Somali people.
Are going to be able to resist legally and frankly morally guardsmen coming to.
Yeah, here. It was under President Obama that the mission in Afghanistan became all about assassinations, aka night raids. His CIA developed and deployed the zero-unit death squads in which Rahmanullah Lakanwal reportedly served. Apparently, the horror of it shattered his mind. Just so you guys understand, like it's not. This isn't a new thing. This isn't a new phenomena. Yeah, 29-year-old Afghan man who shot two nearly sworn-in West Virginia National Guards members in Washington, D.C. had previously worked with CIA-backed militias in Kandahar. The agency confirmed Rahmanullah Lakanwal entered the U.S. in 2021 under Operation Allies Welcome and received asylum this year under Trump. According to CIA Director John Ratcliffe, Lakanwal served in CIA-run counterterrorism units in Kandahar, including the Zero units, notorious squads used in night raids alongside U.S. Special Forces and long accused of extrajudicial killings and disappearances. The New York Times reported that a childhood friend said Lakanwal could not tolerate the violence of the CIA-backed unit he served in. Prosecutors say he carried out a planned targeted attack yesterday with a .357 revolver before being shot and detained. Both guard members remain in critical condition. The FBI is treating the case as terrorism, and the USCIS has halted all Afghan immigration requests. Here's a video from early on of Democracy Now! In 2010 with friend of the Jeremy Scahill discussing American night raid operations in Afghanistan. When you think about the collective punishment that's been meted out against people based largely on false intelligence, you understand why the United States is failing in Afghanistan.
In this family's, mud brick kala compound, people live in these. They're like huge, almost small fortresses.
Why are there ads? We don't run ads at the HasanAbi broadcast. The Piker Broadcasting Service is ad-free, but you can still subscribe regardless. The Piker Broadcasting Service is ad-free. However, if you would like to support the broadcast, the Piker Broadcasting Service, Twitch has global ads now. Wait, what? They fucking figured out another way to run ads on this? That's crazy. Piker Broadcasting Service is sponsored by you, the viewers, for you, the viewers. The only reason why you're maybe seeing a fake ad being served is because you probably have ad blocker on. That's the reason.
Is built up, 10, 12 feet high with mud brick walls. And then inside of it, you have multiple generations of families living. And we went there and we were welcomed into their home. I mean, what really was humbling is for most people that are targeted in these night raids, the only Americans they've ever met are the people that killed their loved ones and me and Rick. And in fact, one elder in a family that we went to visit, said to our translator, and we found out about this later, first the Americans kill us and then they want to put us on camera. We were in this family's compound where this man, 8 people were gunned down, and U.S. forces threw a fragmentation grenade into a courtyard where children were sleeping outside because it was hot, and multiple children got hit with fragments of this in the face and the stomach, and we saw the injuries on these children. What crime did they commit? People in these areas thought bandits were coming in the middle of the night. No one comes into the homes of Muslims in Afghanistan at night except bandits or the Taliban is how people perceive it. So they fight back, and then the U.S. says, well, they fired at us. This little girl comes up to Rick and I, which we had seen her playing in the background when we were interviewing her father, and she came up to us and she said to our translator, I have something I want to say to them.
How old was
she? And she was, I don't know, maybe 4 to 6, yeah. And she actually was the niece of the guy that we were interviewing, and she came up to us and she said, my daddy wasn't a Talib, but the Americans killed him anyway. And it wasn't a staged thing or anything. We had watched her the whole time playing there, and she came up. We went to another place in Paktia province where this little girl was sort of weaving back and forth and repeating this thing, and Rick was filming her, and we were thinking that she was just playing, and we were filming a kid playing in a courtyard, and our translator had a tear going down his face, and we said, what did she say? And he said to her family that were killed in the night raid. They killed my mommy, they killed my aunt, they killed my uncle, and she was a kid playing, and this is a kid who's 3 or 4 years old. We met a kid who had been shot in the stomach and in another place by U.S. Special Operations Forces. They literally shot the speech out of him. He couldn't speak. And we didn't know this until, we're documenting these things in a sort of forensic way, going through, each person that was killed, how were they killed, interviewing all of the eyewitnesses. No one's ever done a thorough investigation. So what Rick and I were trying to do is piece together all these targeted killings. So we're in this place in Paktia province, and we're interviewing all these people, and there's this kid, and we see this gaping wound in his stomach. And so we bring the camera over to interview him, and the translator asks him a question, and he's just kind of going like this, and then someone says that he can't speak, and he just puts his hand in front of his face and just starts wailing in front of our camera, going, ah! He wasn't like that before this incident. He is so traumatized. He got shot in his stomach that he literally can't speak anymore. And so when you think about the collective punishment that's being meted out against people based largely on false intelligence, you understand why the U.S. is failing in Afghanistan. The insurgency is spreading.
Yeah. Fuck, we are now the bad guys. We've been the bad guys. We've been the bad guys. That's why it's frustrating when I try to say that we don't have to be. We don't have to be the bad guys, but we have been consistently. And then whenever I talk about how we don't have to be the bad guys and we shouldn't be the bad guys, as a matter of fact, people fucking yell at me and say, oh, you must hate America. Back in the day, it used to be almost exclusive to the likes of Steven Crowder. Oh, if you don't like it, why don't you fucking leave? That clip is from 15 years ago, by the way. That clip is from 2010. And it's crazy that back in the day, it was mostly just like the Steven Crowders of the world who would fucking screech about this shit. But now liberals do it too. Everyone is so swept away with this false sense of patriotism. Not trying to be mean, but my wife is working today as a nurse and she's a fan of you. Can you say, I hope you have a good day, Josie? I hope you have a good day, Josie.
Their cities to help do the same thing.
Well, I mean, look at the situation in Chicago, where the governor, Pritzker, is fighting President Trump with everything that Pritzker has to try to keep President Trump from ending the murder epidemic in Chicago. Pritzker and Johnson are fighting on behalf of the murderers, not on behalf of the citizens, fighting against the National Guard, fighting against law enforcement, and fighting against federal investigators at every step of the way. Let me begin by saying to the beginning of your question that the president's remarks, I think, were among the most moving that I've ever heard. It was perfect for this incredibly tragic occasion. This heartbreaking, anguishing tragedy right before Thanksgiving. I think she spoke movingly and beautifully to what we've lost, but also demonstrated the tremendous resolve and determination to not only continue the mission these soldiers died for, but to expand the mission, declaring that far from being deterred, the commander-in-chief, our president, is sending 500 more troops to the city to show that no terrorism will. So having a conversation tonight with America, the conversation that we have to have with President Trump saying that Joe Biden, the Biden administration, the Democrats have inflicted on this nation the worst national security threat in our history. We've never faced a threat like this. 20 million people brought into our country from the most failed societies on earth. Afghanistan, Somalia, Libya, Iraq, brought here. No vetting, no conditions, no rules. Brought here on visas, brought here on...
Yeah, except everything you just said is wrong. Why did they fail? We failed them. We caused them to fail. And also, this guy was vetted. It's just, they're just lying. I don't know how else to explain it other than he's just fucking lying.
As refugees.
Yeah, Islam failed them. Totally, dude. You're so right. You are the exact kind of dumbass. You are the exact kind of dumbass that this fucking freak ass Nazi is talking to. Okay? You're already tuned into that goddamn frequency. Yeah, totally, dude. It's Islam that failed them. Oh, God. Billions of Muslims worldwide. You are the real barbarian. I hope you understand that. This kind of fucking moronic attitude is unironically this kind of moronic attitude that justifies all of the death and destruction that America engages in so that some fucking faceless, lifeless corporate stooge can turn profit is infinitely more barbaric than anything that you consider to be lesser than you. You need to wake the fuck up, dude. Islam has failed them, says the guy who got failed by the educational system. Yeah.
Brought here as asylees, brought here as illegals, brought here in every way imaginable, by plane, train, bus, automobile, by land, by sea. For 4 straight years, they deluged this country And now more blood is being spilled as a result. What you heard tonight from President Trump, the breaking news here tonight, is saying that his government is going to accelerate efforts to review every person added to this country over the last 20 years.
He said, Muhammad Jihad, Durka. Brother's hitting 2003 lines right now. That's awesome. I cannot think of a fucking sadder way to spend your fucking Thanksgiving, dude. Jesus Christ. He's not wrong on the immigration part, though. What the fuck are you talking about, dude? What the fuck are you talking about? This guy is our guy. Once again, there is very little daylight between what this guy did and what, like, the 17 other fucking veterans that you know, either burned a church down or fucking engaged in mass shootings or did like a police assisted suicide in the last 8 months. You're a fucking idiot. Name a single other mass shooting. Yeah, Americans famously never commit mass shootings. Oh, people are so fucking dumb. Well, if you think about it, being racist on Thanksgiving is the OG kind of way to celebrate. Okay, true. That is actually in the spirit of Thanksgiving when you really think about it.
4 years, all 20 million. Now, obviously, if you're illegal, you're out automatically. But everybody else who was brought here, refugee, asylum status, whatever status,
I see all of this as like a coping mechanism. Okay, as conditions worsen and people are forced to see the contradictions, I think they just cope with it by being like, no, it's because they're fucking this one. Well, this guy's Muslim. This guy's an immigrant. That's why. Yeah, don't look at like the 7 million different instances of this happening in the hands of like Americans in the identical fashion, you know? No. This is, well, we got to fix the migrant crisis. That's what it is. I don't know, man. Maybe we shouldn't be fucking shipping 18-year-olds overseas so they can fucking guard poppy fields so that the Pentagon can have his own drug running operation where they make money off of selling heroin to the European markets. And then in the process of shipping them over there, they get their brains broken and then they come back and we don't even give them like the adequate medical care that they need. And then they feel some type of way. And also they have unlimited, and some of them choose to take matters in their own hands and kill themselves individually. Others do it by way of suicide by cop. Some of them do it with, some of them do it like this. None of this has to happen, by the way. None of it.
He said, if you're not someone who loves this country, if you're not any benefit to this country, then we're going to send you out of this country because it's enough already. No one else has to die. No one else has to be murdered. No one else has to be shot. No more empty seats are needed at the Thanksgiving table or the Christmas table because of what Democrats have done to this country. So tonight we heard from a commander-in-chief a historic announcement, a brave announcement, exactly what America needed to hear, Kellyanne.
Absolutely. Stephen Miller, and you've amplified.
How come we don't talk about guns anymore? I do all the time. It's just not even an issue for so many people. It's just not, it's a given.
The National Guard, and then they dehumanize the guardsmen and guardswomen, and it should surprise no one, yet shock us and sadden us all the same what happened today. Stephen, that's also a president I know influenced by you and others as well, who is helping to lead the nation in prayer. And he's praying for those victims. He's praying for their families. He's praying for the other brave men and women in all types of uniform who wake up every morning and run toward the danger to protect our freedoms and our lives. Stephen Miller, thank you very much. God bless Katie and you and the family for Thanksgiving. Appreciate it.
Thank
Stephen
you.
Miller, White House Deputy Chief of Staff.
God bless America.
Yes.
God bless America. Prayer should help them with their bills. Yeah. You don't understand. You don't understand, dude. A lot of Americans are praying to make their Thanksgiving meals more affordable today. That's the other side of the story too. Totally working. Why does he stand sideways like that? I don't even fucking know.
We've now learned the names of the 2 West Virginia National Guard members who were shot at point-blank range just blocks from the White House. The Justice Department identifying them as 20-year-old Sarah Beckstrom and 24-year-old Andrew Wolf.
You were right. A lot of people on X are speculating it's a false flag operation. Of course they are, dude. Our brains are fucking fried. Everything sucks. People want answers. This seems like a neat little bow. I think in many instances the truth is The truth requires people to come to terms with the fact that their favorite, political leader, for example, all the way back to like Barack Obama, is somewhat responsible for this. Like American normalcy in the foreign policy side of things is directly responsible for it. So they don't want that. That's like a tough pill to swallow. So they have to think like, no, this is different. It's just like we activated this guy so that they can do a false flag operation. It's the other side of the coping mechanism coin, right? Neo-Nazis look at this and go, well, he's brown, he's Muslim, he's migrant, And then other people look at this and think, no, it's not because like, we have fucking CIA-backed death squads in Afghanistan, a country that we didn't have to fucking be in at all, as a matter of fact. We had no business being inside of. A country that we've actively destabilized for decades, even prior to our direct involvement with boots on the ground, military invasion and occupation.
Understand they've undergone surgery and remain in critical condition.
New details about the suspect. Authorities say the 29-year-old Afghan national traveled across the country from Washington state to the nation's capital before the attack. We'll have the latest on the investigation in a moment. First, I want to get to CNN's Brian Todd, who's live at the shooting scene. And Brian, you're learning more about how this attack played out.
That's right, Omar and Boris. We have important new information this afternoon on how the attack played out. We're going to get to what Jeanine Pirro said about that in just a second. But first, we have access here that we have not had before to the actual spot where the shooting occurred. I'm standing at the spot right now. And if you come over here with me, our photojournalist Jay McMichael and I are going to walk you over here. This area here, excuse me, ma'am. This is the bus shelter where, according to officials, at least one of the guardsmen tried to take cover at. And you can see that a plexiglass panel here has been shot out. You can see the fragmented glass up there. This panel is gone. And I'm going to walk you over here to this planter. It appears here that there is a bullet hole here that entered here and exited here of this planter. There's another planter over here. Jay's going to shoot you a close-up of that. And there's another planter here where this part has been removed. I'm going to walk you over here to show you that part of the planter that was removed. And in the meantime, you see a makeshift memorial here to the victims, people laying flowers and an American flag. Over here is a part of that panel that was actually removed, and you can see additional bullet holes here, one here, one here. And this looks like some evidence that was handled by authorities as they started to process the scene last evening. So in addition to that, we have new information from Jeanine Pirro. She is the U.S. Attorney General for the District of Columbia. Earlier today, she spoke to us about the sequence of gunshots. Take a listen.
A lone gunman opened fire without provocation, ambush style, armed with a .357 Smith & Wesson revolver. One guardsman is struck, goes down, and then the shooter leans over and strikes the guardsman again. Another guardsman is struck several times.
And both of those guardsmen are now in critical condition at a local hospital. We have made inquiries with the hospital to learn more about the surgeries and about where they're being treated. The hospital's not gotten back to us on that. As Boris and Omar mentioned, they're identified as Sarah Beckstrom, 20 years old, Andrew Wolf, 24 years old. Those are the two guard members who were struck yesterday in this attack. Beckstrom has been on the guard since 2023, according to officials. Andrew Wolf has been in the guard since 2019. According to officials at the news conference, were sworn in yesterday. We believe that meant that they were sworn in not as new guard members, but sworn in as deputies for the U.S. Marshals, which they have to do about every month. Guys, back to you.
Brian Todd live for us in Washington, D.C.
Like part of the reason why I don't think is a false flag is Venezuelan. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like this doesn't benefit the administration as much. And it seems more so that they are, that they're opportunists that are taking advantage of the situation. You know? Like, a much better, like a false flag would be if this guy was like saying he's Antifa, or, he's just like a card carrying leftist Antifa guy, or if he's like Venezuelan and, we have to go and do something about it. Yeah. He's even better if he's a Hamas/Hezbollah illegal from Venezuela. Exactly. Shooter is a transgender Venezuelan national that was engaging in drug trafficking for Cartel de las Rosas or whatever, the working directly with Maduro and also Hamas.
Hope to learn a positive update on those Guard members at some point soon. CNN senior national security reporter Zach Cohen joins us now. Zach, take us through what we've learned about the suspect.
Yeah, we're learning quite a lot about his background. It's a 29-year-old Afghan national who came to the United States in 2021 as part of this program that was implemented by the Biden administration after the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan. Now, it seems that why he was allowed to come to the U.S. in part was because of his work with the U.S. military and CIA. He was, our understanding, he served in an elite counterterrorism unit that worked directly with U.S. intelligence and military units in Afghanistan, including active combat against Taliban forces at the time. And so there were
I also don't think this further justifies like going back into Afghanistan in the way that like the Trump administration has signaled that they want to with like Bagram and stuff. I don't know how you tie this back, because I feel like for many Americans, what was that, little bro? Dr. Pepper?
thousands of those individuals who served in those roles that were evacuated when the Taliban started to rise to power after the U.S. left. And it appears that was the basis for his immigration into the United States. Now, of course, several layers of vetting and took place after he got here. He was only temporarily allowed to come here at first, but his background with the CIA and the intelligence community does seem to be the basis for his travel to the U.S.
So what was that vetting process actually like? Because obviously there were a lot of Afghans that were coming over as part of that Operation Allies Welcome.
Yeah, by all accounts, it should have been very extensive. We know that in that initial process, he would have been vetted by the U.S. government, including the CIA. And then once he was granted temporary asylum, as he applied for permanent status, he would have gone through a variety of different layers of vetting. Those include identity and background checks, biometric vetting, in-person interviews, assessment of an individual risk, and eligibility under U.S. law. So that's several layers. I mean, it's important to remember, too, the ultimate approval and of his asylum application was granted under the Trump administration in 2025.
Important in the context of the president and allies saying that this was the policy of the previous administration to let folks in without vetting. Important to keep that in mind. Zach Cohen, thank you so much. Let's get some perspective now with Donnell Harvin. He is the former head of Homeland Security and Intelligence for Washington, D.C., also a member of the faculty at Georgetown University's Emergency and Disaster Management Program. Donnell, thank you so much for being with us. Happy Thanksgiving. We're grateful that you could share some time. I wonder what a review, as the president has said, of every migrant admitted to the U.S. under the previous administration would look like, as we've also learned that officials are going to pause any migration case related to Afghans pending further review. What does all of that entail?
That entails going through and interviewing quite possibly anywhere from 70 to nearly 100,000 people, depending on what reports you read. It's got to be very clear to the audience that, you know, these Afghan asylum seekers who've come over have committed crimes at such a low rate. I was unable to find any major crimes that were committed by these individuals. These individuals and their family members serve the U.S. service members abroad, help save lives. In fact, there's many documented cases of former service people going over to rescue them even after the evacuation. What happens is that once these individuals go through that layered process of vetting, and they get into the United States, they're kind of free to move around the country at their will. There's no further surveillance of them. There's no surveillance state of them. They're just like any other asylum seeker. They'll go through their process, and throughout their process, they will have interviews, and then they'll be part of a normal, non-enhanced vetting. What I believe that the administration's talking about now is some type of advanced vetting. The other thing I wanted to mention is that when you interview these people, when they go through the vetting process, you're looking behind, right? You're looking at their previous history, their ideology, who they've been associated with. That can't predict the future. And so this is the difficult part that the administration finds themselves in now.
Yeah, especially as we've seen so many cases of people being radicalized through a number of different means. If
the obsession with vetting is just a distraction, it's going to fail occasionally. No system is 100% perfect. What do you mean? There's no indication that this dude was going to snap. What do you like? Why, how would the vetting show? If the vetting is looking for criminal associations or associations with known terror groups, and the vetting is being done by the CIA, and the CIA itself has made this guy into a fucking terrorist, of course You know, that's not something that they're looking for in the vetting. So the vetting didn't even fail in this regard, is what I mean. Like, sometimes vetting can fail. This is not even an instance where the vetting failed.
If this, in fact, turns out
Is there a moment where you will snap in the future?
terrorism, and that leads me to the next question. How is it that officials determine a motive accurately here? Because you have the administration saying that this was terrorism, but the investigators themselves have to piece that together to show evidence of it.
Yeah, in the absence of the surviving individual who's now under arrest cooperating, all reports saying he's not cooperating, they can still piece together their background, who they communicated with. You know, Boris, you and I have been on this topic for many times.
Yeah.
Invariably, many of these individuals who are radicalized and mobilized to violence have some type of breadcrumb trails. We call that leakage. They may have told someone, they may have intimated this online, spoken with someone, shown some type of signs. It's always some type of signs. People just don't wake up, drive across the country with a gun and open fire on uniformed service members. So there's going to be something there they'll be able to find, even though he's not cooperating.
I wanted to go back to something that you alluded to a moment ago, and that is the suspect's previous relationship with the U.S. government and his work in Afghanistan, including with the CIA, according to Director John Ratcliffe. How do you read that relationship?
You know, everything I've read that's open source available says that he served honorably and was trusted at a very high level. Like, you don't get attached to a secret top secret unit with the CIA and special operations if you haven't been vetted even before the evacuation, right? So they trusted this individual quite possibly with their life.
When he was 15 years old, he served honorably in the CIA death squad. The vetting was extremely successful. They just went like Alex Acosta. He's intelligence. Leave him alone. Yeah. MSM is honestly mentally ill. These are killers and they kill for America abroad. Serving honorably means killing well. Yeah. I mean, that's if your position, if your broader position across the board is that American foreign policy is good, and that is the uniparty position, and that is, of course, always going to be the position of every single person in mainstream news outlets, then you can't fucking be like, yeah, this is a child killer. Like, this is a child. This was a child who was trained to be a child killer in Afghanistan by our intelligence community. Like, there will be no moments of consideration for why we did any of this stuff in Afghanistan. That's not a part of the conversation at all. You feel me? That's it. I didn't consent. I'm just saying, this stuff happens completely outside of our interests and without our consent at all. At most, they will justify it by saying, well, they're scary brown Muslim guys. They deserve to be fucking ruthlessly slaughtered because they're barbaric, right? That's the most consent you will get manufactured. So you'll be on board with at least like the broader initiatives.